Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install exterior pod lights around your house. I'm going to show you how to use existing wiring in your house to accomplish this project. As you can see, this is the end result. I hope you find this video helpful. So let's check it out. Hi guys, in this video, I'm going to show you how to install exterior pod lights in your house. The reason why I chose this project is because I found a 3-way switch that's connected to the fan in the washroom upstairs. For some reason, the builder connected a switch here in the main level to the switch in the washroom. So we're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to use the switch here and use it to control the exterior pod lights outside. Alright? Just like in my previous video where you can watch by clicking here, where we took advantage of the switch outlet that we have in the wall, and we use that to control the lights in the living room in my previous project. So you guys can check that out later. But right now we're gonna make some holes outside in the house, in the soffit. We're gonna make about 7 of them. All right, so let's see how it goes. This is the light we're gonna be working with. It's a 4-inch gimbal pod light. Okay, this is the front view of my house. That's where we're going to put the 4 pod lights. Then we're going to put 1 pod light on the small side wall. And then we're going to put 2 pod lights above the windows. That makes it 7. But I've decided to put lights all around the house now. So we're going to add 8 pod lights on the side of the house. It's going to be spread out by 7 feet. And then we're going to put 4 pod lights at the back of the house as well. So now I'm going to teach you how to use the ladder. First, you put it into position, then you raise it up, run by run, until you're up against the wall. The angle we want to be at, it's at 75 degrees, or by ratio footage would be 4 feet high, 1 foot out. Okay? Pick up the bottom and walk it out slowly. In our case, we're going 20 feet high, so we need to be 5 feet from the wall. Or you can stand in front of the ladder, extend your arms. It has to be level, and that will give you the right angle. And to climb up the ladder, you need to keep a 3-point contact, either 2 feet in one hand or 2 hands in 1 foot. Okay? That's a safe way to do it. Okay, so now we're going to find the distance from the wall to the edge of the soffit, which is 11 inches. Then we're going to use a 3/16 drill bit to make a hole in the middle, which will be 5.5 inches from the wall. We do this, that way we can insert the pilot bit from the 4-inch hole saw and make it more stable when drilling the hole for the pod light. For that, we're going to use the hammer drill along with the 4-inch hole saw, okay? Once we make the hole, we're going to look inside to see how we're going to run the wires. There's no obstruction in the corner to the window, but we have a little obstruction from this hole to the front of the house, but we can go around the brick, as you can see. Then we're going to close the hole temporarily with a pod light. Then we're going to make a second hole. Then we're going to look inside and notice there's a rafter on one side and a rafter on the way up as well. But as you notice, there's a gap underneath where we can run the cables through. We're going to close it temporarily with a pod light again and continue drilling the last 2 holes. Now we're going to check the 5th hole, which is on the side of the house. Let's look inside, and we see the picture on the left shows that we have a clear path to the front of the house, and the picture on the right shows that we have a clear path to the window. In addition to that, we've also found out that we have an easy access to the attic. since there's only fiberglass insulation blocking our way. So we just keep following the same process. We cover the holes temporarily with a pod light, then we proceed to make more holes, check inside to see if we have a clear path, and then make the second hole, which is going to be above the window. Okay, now we're going to start the side of the house. We're going to make the first hole about 2 feet away from the corner of the roof. From there on, we're going to make 7 holes, and they're going to be 7 feet apart from each other. And finally, we're going to do the back of the house. Here, we're going to install 4 pod lights. We're here now in the washroom on the second level of the house. Here's where we have a fan that's connected to a 3-way switch. One switch being here and the other one in the main level. Notice that switch on that side of the wall. That's a light switch that's connected to this light switch here. It's important for you guys to know this so that way you're going to understand the wiring later on when we take off the wall plate. Okay? So now we're going to see that's the fan switch and we're going to turn it on. And it does turn on. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go downstairs and we're going to turn it off from the main level switch. So here we are. We're going to turn it off. And then we're going to go upstairs again to see if it turned it off. And it did. Now we're going to turn it back on. And then just turn it off. Just to make sure everything works properly. Now what we're going to do next, we're going to go downstairs and we're going to take off the wall plate from the switch there. Okay? Now we see the 3-way switch. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to cut the wires loose because we're going to replace this with a single pole switch. Now the wires are loose and we'll come back to this later. Now we're back on the second level and we're going to unscrew the switches from the electrical box. As you can see, they didn't use the screws from neither of the switches to connect the wires, but they used the holes at the back instead. Now we're going to learn how they did the wiring. First, we need to identify all the cables that are inside the electrical box. First, we have the power source cable, which brings electricity into the electrical box. Then we have the outlet cable, which sole purpose is just to get power from the power source. Then we have the light switch cable that controls the light in the washroom. Then we have the fan cable that's directly connected to the fan. And lastly, we have the 3-way switch cable that's connected to the fan switch. Then we need to identify the switches. Here we have the fan switch, and here we have the light switch. Then we have the neutral wires. We have the neutral wires for all 4 cables here joined by the wire nut, except cable number 5, which neutral wire is being used as a travel wire in the fan switch. Now let's move on to the ground wires. Since we have 5 cables, that means we have 5 ground wires, and they're all connected to the green screw inside the electrical box. Now let's talk about the power source cable. This cable is bringing power to the light switch through the black wire. But notice how the black wire is not connected to the common terminal screw, but instead to the hole behind it. That's because the outlet cable is connected to the common terminal screw to get power from the power source cable. And so is this little cable right here. It's connected to the screw and carrying power to the fan switch. Now let's talk about travelers. For the light switch, we have a black wire and a red wire connecting it to the other light switch on the other side of the room. And for the fan switch, we have a neutral wire and a red wire providing a path for electricity to travel to the switch that's in the main level of the house. Here, the common terminal is connected to a black wire that's carrying power to the fan. To do that, the black wire has to go back to the second level so it can be joined together with a black wire that belongs to the fan cable. Okay guys, here I'm going to show you a new trick. We're going to create an opening. That way we have access to the cable that's going to be coming down from the attic into the electrical box. Then we're just simply going to cover it up with a wall plate. We're not going to do extra holes on your walls or ceiling just to run wires from the attic like most DIYers advise you to do. Okay, now we're here up in the attic and we have found the cables that are connected to the electrical box. So what we're going to do now, we're going to drill a hole. That way we can run the cable that's going to be connected to the pod lights and go into the electrical box. Okay, to drill the hole, we're using a 4-inch spade bit with the width of the head being 3/4. Then we're going to run the wires through the hole towards the electrical box. Okay, the goal here is to get the cable through this hole. To do that, you're going to have to get a fish tape, make it into a hook so you can catch the cable coming down from the attic. Once you get a hold of the cable, then you have to use the hook that you made from the fish tape so you can drag the cable underneath the electrical box. Then you will be able to get the cable through the bottom hole. And finally, you have to use the cable clamp to secure the cable inside the electrical box. Now we're going to get the switches ready, since we're going to pigtail them to the power source. We're going to keep the light switch the same. The only difference is that we're going to send the power directly to the common terminal screw. For the fan switches, we're going to replace them with these two single pole switches. Okay, before we start connecting the wires to the switches, let's do a little review. These two wires are coming from the power source cable. These three wires are coming from the light switch cable. Then we have these two wires that are coming from the outlet cable. And now we have these three new wires that are coming from the pod light cable. Don't worry about the ground wire because we're going to connect that to the green screw and the electrical box. Then we have the two wires that are coming from the fan cable. And finally, we have these three wires coming from the switch in the main level. Now we're going to start connecting the wires. For the three-way light switch, we have the black and red wires connected to the travel terminal screws on each side. Then we have replaced the three-way fan switch with a single pole switch and have connected the black wire coming from the fan cable to the output screw. Now we're going to join together all the remaining black wires, with the exception of the black wire that's coming from the pod light cable. All 5 wires, which includes the pigtails coming from the switches, will be joined together inside a wire nut. We will now connect the black wire that's coming from the pod light cable to the red wire that's coming from the main level switch. And finally, we're going to connect all the neutral wires together. Once all the wirings are done, we're going to screw back the switches onto the electrical box. Then we're going to hide all the gaps around the electrical box by using the wall plate. For the main level switch, all you have to do is connect the black wire to one of the screws and the red wire to the other. It doesn't matter which one you pick. And for the neutral wire, we're going to cap it off because we're not going to use it in this box. Then just put everything back in place. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the front of the house from inside the attic. As you can see, it's being blocked off by that piece of plywood, so we have no access to the front lights. Therefore, we're going to start the connections at the back of the house. We're going to start from where we drilled the hole and make our way to the back of the house. Don't forget to staple the cables along the way. Now that we reached the back of the house, you can see there's only fiberglass insulation in our way, so we can easily get the cables through it. Alright guys, so I'm going to be showing you how I've been running the wires, alright? I wasn't able to do it before. I did the back and the side of the house already, so that's about 12 pod lights that we've run the wires to. I was standing on the ladder, so it was impossible to show it to you guys. But now right here in this area of the house, I'm able to show it. So we got 3 pod lights here. It's just covering the ones that we drilled on day 1 before I went on my vacation, right? So now we're back. So we're gonna remove the pod lights and we're gonna run the wires so that way we can light them up. All right. So I'm gonna show you what I use. I use a broomstick. I was trying to use a fish tape, but it didn't work because the sofa is not a flat surface, and it kept getting stuck. So broomstick, it worked better for me. All right. So I'm gonna show you how I did it. All right. So right now we're gonna remove the pod lights that's covering the holes that we left from day one, and we're gonna start running the wires. Okay. And then we're gonna go to the front. So now I'm just gonna remove the pod light that we place here temporarily, so I can have access to the cable that's coming from the side of the house. Okay, here I don't need to use a broomstick because they're not too far apart, but you do need to use it at the back of the house and on the side of the house, all right? Because the space between pod lights is about 7 feet apart, all right? So that's why you need to use a broomstick or a fish tape if you want to do it that way, right? But like I said, for me it works better using a broomstick. Here I'm just going to demonstrate how I did it, even though I don't have to because they're not too far apart, all right? So what I do, I measure the length of the wire that I need, and then I get a broomstick. I use the hole that's in the handle, and I just make a hook. That way the cable doesn't go anywhere. All right, that's what I do. Now I'm gonna put this through the hole and drive it all the way to the other hole that I need to put the wires in. Okay. Here I'm just gonna show you how to run the wires using the broomstick. Notice how the end of the cables, they've already been stripped. That's because you want to have it ready so you can just do the connections when you're up in the ladder. It's easier and safer to do. Okay, now that we have the cable on the other side, we're going to detach it from the broomstick. Then we're going to remove the broomstick so we can start our connections. This is what it looks like once the wires has been connected to the junction box. Now I'm going to show you how I did it. First, you got to insert the cable connector to the box. Then you got to cut about 1.5 inches of insulation. And finally, you got to strip 3/4 of the wire sheathing. To connect the wires, just push the cables through the cable connectors and then connect the wires to each matching push-in connectors. Putting a tape around the box, it's optional. I do it just to be safe. All right, here to connect the pod light to the junction box, all you gotta do is just, there's an arrow here, there's an arrow here, just line them up, push it in, and that's it. And you're just gonna secure it with this little screw on, this little cap I mean. Oh. Okay, make sure you push it all the way and until it's flush with each other, okay? Secure the cap, and that's it. That's all there is to it. And all you gotta do is set the light, whichever brightness you guys want. We're gonna go for 3000 here. Push it in. Okay. Or use the clips. Push it in. There you go, and that's it. Okay, this is an optional thing to do, but if you want to close any openings around the pod light, you can use a silicone sealant to close it. Now we're going to run the wires to the front of the house. So far, we had a clear path from the back of the house all the way to this point. But now, we're going to have to remove some of the soffits at these locations in order to run the wires underneath the rafters. Since there are 2 rafters between this pod light and the lower pod light, I've decided to partially remove the soffit underneath one of the rafters. That's because I can easily run the cable under the rafter that's closest to the spotlight, as you can see here, but I wouldn't be able to do it for the second rafter. That's why we need to remove the soffit underneath it so we can run the cable, but also have access to the corner of the house. Now you can connect this cable with the cable coming from the side of the house. Now we're going to be running the cables the opposite way, upwards. Here, we're going to be dealing with two rafters. In that case, we need to partially remove the soffit anywhere between them. That's because we can easily run the cables under the rafter from this spotlight location. Now we have access to the cable, and we will be able to run it underneath the rafter that's at the very top. To finish the job, all you have to do is repeat all the steps that I've shown you and do it on the other side. Okay, let's see if it works. Let's try it again. And it does.